Hi class, my name is Kara Marcus and this is my case study presentation on the Blue Sky Project. This is for Cornerstone University for Business 531. An overview of the case study. Garth Hudson recently accepted a job as the Information Services Director at Eastern Oceanography Institute, also known as EOI. Tom Jackson and Grant Hill were two full-time information systems assistants. In Hudson's first year at EOI, he made some point to introduce himself to the other staff, but for the most part, he spent his time in his office. Recently at EOI, because of a cut in funding, they have decided to move all of their information and databases to a private cloud. This project became known as the Blue Sky Project. While there was a lot of pushback at first because employees didn't want their information in an unknown place in the cloud, eventually people began to understand that this is the way that technology was heading. Hudson was put in charge of the task force to select which cloud servicer provider they would go with. Hudson selected OpenRange because it was the cheapest option and it also included training. Training other employees and his directors intimidated him, so he thought this was the best option. Several employees thought that a bigger, more well-known company should be selected, but Hudson stuck with what he wanted. Once the project started, there were many issues with OpenRange. There were power outages that affected their work. Many people were upset by Hudson's choice. Jackson was the one to respond to the employees and their needs while Hudson worked behind the scenes. At the end of the project, his director came to him and said that they have to let either him or Jackson go, and they were leaning more towards Hudson. How would I respond if I was Hudson? If I were Hudson in this situation, I would remind the director that I was busy working behind the scenes to make this project happen and to fix the kinks. While Hudson was not as involved in as hands-on in the interactions with other employees, he was still an essential piece to this project. I would also remind him that as Hudson, I dedicated many hours, even weekend hours, to make this project work. Hudson did make some mistakes throughout the project. The first one is that he did not seek advice on which service provider to select. He made his decision based on what seemed easier to him. One thing that he liked about OpenRange was the training, and their costs were cheaper. And so with the training, that meant that Hudson did not have to leave his comfort zone to train his colleagues. Another mistake he made was working more behind the scenes and not stepping out to see what people needed through this transition. That's something that Jackson did very well, and Hudson did not. Some possible actions at this point. At this point, EOI has to decide if they are going to let Hudson or Jackson go. Due to budget cuts, they cannot keep both of them, and that was kind of the intention of the Blue Sky Project, was to cut down on their IT staff. Some lessons learned in this project. The biggest thing that I learned and took away from this case study was to be flexible. There may be areas that we do not feel are our strongest assets, like training other employees for Hudson, but we need to be flexible and step outside of our comfort zone. Our textbook lists the following characteristics as an effective project manager: a systems thinker, personal integrity, proactive, high emotional intelligence, general business perspective, effective time management, a skillful politician, and an optimist. I think it's important for us to know which areas we are strong in, but also which areas we lack so that we are able to improve in those areas. And here are the references used.